this section, we're going to focus on implementation. So what I thought I'd do is I'd get a model that I've made entirely in Dynamesh, and we'd attempt to make certain parts of it. I understand it's very easy to learn the tools, but actually implementing them in certain areas to get good results that look clean, relatively clean, can be a whole different ball game. And so I want to go over certain aspects of this radio design, and we can make them. So I'm going to start with this area right here. We're going to make this. And then I think this is a good area. This is another good area. And yeah, we'll just go from here and we'll see. We start by Dynameshing. Something I probably should have explained about Dynamesh is that depending on the scale of your object, when you remesh, it's going to be more dense or less dense. If you make it bigger, it's going to be more dense. You make it smaller, less. And the way that you can think of it is that if I just duplicate this over here, make this bigger, you can see it's matching. And so it's almost like there's an invisible grid that's here that's making the Dynamesh more dense based on the scale. So looking at the reference that I have here, so I came in with my clip curve and I just did a curve like this. And nothing's going to be perfect in ZBrush. This is very hacky, and so the results that we're going to get, like, this is never going to be perfect, and you just kind of have to deal with that. I mean, you can make it perfect, but it's going to take a lot more time, and that's not really why I'm using the software. How I got this result is you can come in and just do this, and that works sometimes, but it's a little bit too messy for my taste, and so what I'll come in and do is select the lasso, and I'll try to get a consistent radius around this that I'm happy with. I'll come in with the brush, get it more accurate. I use a mouse, by the way. You don't need a tablet. Don't listen to the tablet people, they're lying to you. Okay, and then this is easy on this side. I can just come in like this. This bevel's probably a little bit smaller, so I'm just going to increase it on the side. So we have something that's masked pretty well. Then I'm going to come in here. Whoa, okay. I'm going to come in over here and just get a big enough flatten to try and get it pretty good. So this looks good. Now I'm going to come in with the smooth, and I'm just going to smooth it all the way up till it looks like this. And then I'm going to come over here with my planer brush and just make it nice and straight. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll turn on the back face. You get varying results with the back face mask. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but here it works pretty well. And I mean, that's a pretty clean edge. You'll see like maybe some distortions over here. Just come in and smooth, flatten. And then you can even come in with an H polish if you want. And then what I'll usually do whenever I have like a result like this is that I'll just come in, smooth it, because the model is going to be smoothed afterwards anyways, and so this kind of a result is fine. And so this is how I got the curve happening. Let's see, what else? So I have this little thing underneath the curve. I have Mike Nash's brush pack, but this one that I'm using is basically just damn standard with the the intensity turned up. So I'm just coming in, making a cut line that I have. And then for these things on the sides, I'll just do that, mask. Now, if the lines are straight, I don't have to group loops, so I probably don't have to do it here, but usually I'll do that. And if you get this result, you just need to take the polish on group loops and take it down a notch, but I think this is probably a good result right here. And so I can just come in and do this. Dynamesh it, we'll get this result. And then I think maybe I'll also do the bottom half. So let me just get rid of that. I'll make another mesh. So I'll take my insert, get a block here, split. And we'll just insert this as like the floor plane. And so I'll do the same thing, except it's basically the other way, is I'll come in here. And actually, let me cut as well. I think that'll probably be best. So I just cut like this, fix it up a bit. So whenever I have results like this, sometimes you'll do this, and you'll get kind of this like weird edge. And then you'll Dynamesh, and it'll still be there. What you want to do is just mask it like this. Make it into a separate poly group. Select it again, and then do delete hidden, which you have a hotkey for. And so then you'll get this result, and then you can just Dynamesh, come back here, clean it up. So we have something that kind of echoes this. Then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to come in here, put a mask like this, because we can just make these straight. Sometimes you can just make this brush really big, get like a perfect line like that. But I think that this is probably a bit wonky. There you go. Something like this. Again, take out the bottom. Invert. And you invert by just clicking the mask and then clicking, if you didn't already know that. Come in here, make it easier for ourselves. And then you just have to flatten this. Smooth it a bunch, come in with H polish. You can see we kind of have this problem here. If you get this, you can just come in with the flatten on the inverse or the clay. Just build it up. And then you can smooth it, flatten it. Smooth it again. I usually don't spend this much time on these edges, honestly. I'm just showing you how to do it to the most pristine measures so that, you know, you can opt to do it less next time if you want. So that looks pretty good. What I usually would have done for this is as I'm doing the mask, I would have just put these little ticks here because we already had a mask that went around. And if we look at the ref, we have these, I'm just going to put them like this. So we have it like this, bring it up, and then we can just come in here and do the inverted pull up. So it'll pull it up to this length. But the problem is that our edges are all right, but I'm going to group loops and then bring it up. Doesn't have to be perfect on the top. See, I kind of usually over exaggerate it. Then I'll come in with the flatten planer brush. Make sure, see, if you have the backface mask on, you'll get this result because it's trying to preserve the edges that it's not managing to smooth or to pull down with it. So take backface off, and then it should be good. So not the exact same as the reference, but I can just do this and it'll fix most of it. There we go. So this is basically done. I guess I have a line that also goes through here. You know, lines are, you just draw them on. And usually if I'm doing something like this, I'll put a lazy radius on it as well. So if I go to stroke, lazy radius, I can increase that. Makes it a whole lot easier to do this kind of thing. Yeah, this line's not perfect by any means. You can come in with lines as well if it's like flat, and you can just give it a mask and then use the move tool to push in certain directions. I usually wouldn't do this because I just try to get it perfect. But you have so much control over it, and this is why it's great for design, is that, like, see, if I decide to do that and I'm like, you know, you can get the feel for something immediately. It doesn't need to be perfect. I don't like that, so I'm going to come in here and maybe just do, you know, something like this instead, and then have a thing right there. Like, you can get really creative with it. So I'm just going to finish this. So before we move on to the next object, I thought that I would teach you guys about how to maybe do a bit of reconstruction over here, because the mark of being really good at a software is knowing how to break something and reconstruct it. And so this edge, for example, like, let's say you're designing, right? And when you're designing, you're constantly changing things, and maybe like you dent this edge, right? You get a big old fucking dent. And so how would you rebuild something like this? Because things like this do happen, you know. Maybe you try to put some new funky design here and it just doesn't work. There's a lot of things that can happen. So I'm just going to Dynamesh this, and I'm going to come in with my planer tool, And it doesn't really reach to the bottom, and so what I'm going to do is just get the lasso, get the radius there, and that'll allow me to increase the brush to where I can reach it. And so we can kind of reconstruct our line there. And then all we have to do is fill this up. So I just get a clay buildup, get a flatten. You know, you just want to fill this up like it's a hole in your wall. And then it's just the process of doing what we did to get the bevel in the first place. So I'll come in, give it a smooth. Maybe I'll come over here and just recut it a bit. And there's so many different ways that you can do this. I think probably H polish is going to do it. So something like that. Then we just need to come in again with the flatten. And just like that, we've kind of fixed it. Obviously, you can see that there's still a dent there, though, so let me try to really get it perfect. Doing the cut just shows you all the imperfections that you can't see with your eye. So just like that, we've managed to kind of fix the edge. And obviously this whole thing is not totally perfect, so you can come back in and redo it like that. Another thing I wanted to show is, like, if you want to make this edge hard, the way that you would probably do it with the tool set you have now is come in like this, and you can do it with the planer, but I recommend coming in with a really low intensity dam standard, and you can make soft edges sharp with it. So I'll do that. So we are kind of giving it a lip. So what I'm going to do is come back in with the planer, just get rid of that lip that was there. And then again, flatten or H polish is going to be the one that's going to get this to be sharp again. And there you have it. So it's really important that you learn to break and then reconstruct things, because it's going to be necessary for when you start designing in Dynamesh. So now I guess we'll move on to part 2. Well, hopefully that was enlightening. I tried to get this to be as accurate as possible. But now I think you can start to see how I constructed this area, and maybe some other areas are starting to look less complex to you. You know, I did this same thing in a bunch of different places around here. You can see here now, maybe this is kind of showing itself to you. You can see how I got this result, and this is much cleaner. So, you know, if you thought that maybe I did a bit of a bad job here in that little segment, it's just time. You know, you can spend a lot of time or you can spend little time. And, you know, in this whole thing, I tried to get it to where it was quite pristine. But obviously, you go close up, you'll start to see some issues. But I mean, these are concepts, right? Someone else is going to make this perfect. And so my job is just to get it to where they know what this is and they can interpret it. So now I think we'll move on to this area over here. And we'll see how that goes. Alright, so this area is another area that looks like it's complex, but in reality it's quite simple. And so I think I'm just going to bring this back over here. If we actually look at what's happening here, it's a cylinder, and then it's a box that is inserted into the cylinder. And then it just has cuts like this. And that's the profile view. The front area over here, you know, you see the line that comes around here, the holes. Like, we already know how to do all of this stuff, and so I'm just going to go through it again, and hopefully it'll shed some more light on how I created this. So first of all, it's not a box, so we're going to have to make a square. I'll come into my IMM basic and get a cylinder. Just place it here, and what I'm going to do is just select it, split hidden. Once it's split up, I'm just going to subdivide this so that it is smooth, delete hidden, and then I am actually just going to hide my box. I'll bring these together to where it's roughly the same size as what we had in the reference. Dynamesh this together, and then I'm going to turn on my radial symmetry. Turn it up to 100. Problem with radial symmetry is you can't do symmetry at the same time. So if we're looking at this, I'm also just going to increase the resolution. If we're looking at this, it's going to go from right to left when I mirror it. So that's kind of how we have to do it. Like, we have to work on this side, and then whatever we do on this side is going to be translated to the other side. This is a little thinner. The bevel on the edge. And then I'll take this out. So I'll just mirror this back over. And I think what we'll do is we'll just insert a box that we have into the mesh. So we already have this box. Yeah, I guess I'll just do it all at the same time. So it's angled like this. You can get quite dense in Zbrush. I don't have that great a computer, honestly. I only have like 16 RAM, so. Also, we have something else. So I'm actually going to use extrude on this. And then I'm going to get the same width over here. And I'm not sure how I handled it on the other side because I don't have that image currently, but I'm pretty sure it just like ends somewhere. So then what I'll do is use the extrude. Okay, that's probably good. So we have something like this. You can come in, Dynamesh it. I'll fix these edges by just going over it. Actually, what I can do, yeah, I know, I'll just do it that way. You cannot do this operation though. This is what I was gonna do, and I should probably explain this. What's happening here is, see, if I just do it one side, if I just do like this, what it's doing is pulling this in. But when we have a mirror, it's pulling it from both directions, and so it has the result that it does because it's just bugging out. It's trying to get from this direction, doesn't know what to do, and so it has very odd results, and so you need to try to fix that by like doing it on one side and then mirroring it. But be careful when you do it to the edge, because remember, if you do local symmetry, it's going to expand it. It's going to expand it so that the mirror might be like a little bit off. So this is probably good. I'll just come in here with a flatten. Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to come in here. Move this down. Try that again. Move this up. Get a fillet right here. And on this side, I think what I did is probably just masked. Give it a fillet. Then put like 2 holes in it or something. Seems like something I would do. I think the center line's like here, so maybe it was like here. I did a little cut like that, about this size, I think. Maybe a bit smaller. Like this. New subtool, or what's it called, polygroup, group loop. Swing it down here. What I do for bolts is either I'll make them myself, or what I'll do is type in I, and these are all the IMM brushes, and I'll just come to the bolts that they already have. It looks like I just picked this one or this one, and I just drag it in like this. I'll split it so that it's its own subtool. So what I do is I'll subdivide it. Fixes most of it. Make it really dense. And then I'll just come in here and smooth it. Bring it up a bit. And now I think I need to merge this. Merging is very easy. You just want to make sure that this one, because we want to keep this resolution to the whole thing, needs to be above it inside of the subtool scene manager. So we just merge it down. There we go. It'll give us a little bit of an issue here, but nothing a smooth can't handle. I can already see this is like not really how it is. Like it's a little bit more elongated, but it's fine. It's the same exact process. You just have to correct the proportions, and that just takes time. We're trying to do this fast, so like this, I think. Maybe a little bit more. Is it there? Yeah, like there. Fix these edges. Yeah, they're nice and smooth. Came in, probably just did this. And this edge, I just came and did the thing that I did in the other one. I probably need more resolution for this. You see it like stretches in, so it should be a little bit better when we dynamesh and smooth, but I have a hole right here. I can just inflate it inwards. Came in on this side with a mask. And I think that mask also went over like this. I can't even make my own designs. Yeah, something like this. I'm just going to turn up my resolution. Then for this, I'm just going to draw it in, I think. Fill it in. Try to correct these straightened edges. Group loops. And group loops are, the edges are going to have a lesser effect if there's more topology there, if it's more dense. Imagine these edges are higher, so put a group loops on it. I can get my pivot so that it's at the same axis and kind of move it up with the local normal angle. All right, that's much better. And then how I would fix this is I just come in with a planer brush, but it looks like the Dynamesh took out most of that. There we go. So far, as a result we have, I am going to collapse this now because it is collapsed in the other one. We go. I always recommend saving before you do these things, before you collapse anything, because trying to undo a collapse is pretty weird. Okay, inflate that inwards. Come in like this. Group loop. I'll cut it early, and then I will do a fillet into the next one. Same thing we've been doing. Cut it up. Just going to cut in. And then here, I'll just use my plein air brush to have some kind of geometry. Easiest way is just to do this. And then for this part, we can mask it off. Group loop. Now that's not going to work, so we got to make these edges filleted. And then I'll bring it in like that. All the way. Oops. And then I can isolate this. Another fillet. Finally. And I guess we'll also do the switch while we're at it. So what I'm actually going to do here is I have like perfect geometry for the switch, so I'll just split hidden, come here, and I will close holes. And I'll take this. And the reason why I do close holes is sometimes, especially when you're splitting things up, you kind of need to do close holes because Dynamesh is very messy. And hopefully there's a situation where I can showcase this a little better, because it's not really the best situation right now. I'll take this, and actually this is what I'll do. If I Dynamesh this, it'll look like crap. But if I close holes this, you can see it's intact. And so what I was going to do is just do an extract on this, but I think I'll just use it to showcase close holes. So I'll select the top, isolate it, and then I will get a cut on it. I'll try to get a cut that's all the way up here. There we go. That's weird. I'm just going to polish this to fix it. That did the trick. Kinda. And then, yeah, I should have made this flat actually, so I'm just gonna do a little revert here. You line it up. I can cut it. There we go. And then I'll turn on my symmetry from all sides. Turn on local. Perfect. And then I'll turn off some of these, and I will get this cut that looks like this. You can also come in and fix edges like this, and you can pull them from different ways. And I'll fix it like this. There we go. That's pretty terrible, but it's fine. Come in and give this a nice fillet. And we have this issue here. We can just try to resolve it as best we can. And if we can actually lower this resolution a little bit. And why we're doing that is that we can get a better, like look how much I can polish it. So again, make sure when you're polishing this is ticked so it's not a hollow circle. And we get a button. God, this does not look like it at all. In terms of the proportions, but it's the same method. Maybe you can do a better job. So that's basically done. One thing that I like to do is wherever I've cut lines, like this is supposed to be a different material, or at least a different like part that you can kind of fix into this this cut line groove here. So what I'll do is I'll always split these up, and I guess I can showcase the close holes. So I'll split it, and then I'll close holes. Now, see, this would not work. I need to put on double. See, this would not work with Dynamesh at all. It would just screw your whole model up. So you need to do close holes, and then you can come in here, and you just need to drag it to where it gets out of the way. Once it's out the way, then you can cut it to be nice. All right. Same with the inside. Whoa, nope. Close holes. Make it come down. And then if I want to, I can start like applying a different material. So if I want this whole thing to be a little bit more black, color, fill object. And we can kind of distinguish the materials that way. And that's really important that you do that. So this is kind of like totally fucked. It doesn't look like the one that I made proportion wise, but same method for everything. It's just get good, I guess. So that's going to conclude this part, and on to the next part. So hopefully now it's really starting to become evident how I go about constructing the shapes you see here. You know, it's everything that we've done so far here and here can just be extrapolated to the entirety of this model and really anything that I create. You know, all the bolts that you see, you now know how to make. The cut lines that you see, you now know how to make. You know, same cut lines here, and then you know how to split them up. These little details are the same details that we did on this part. Every single switch that's here, you now basically know how to craft. They're just variations of the same switch. You know, it should start to make a lot more sense. Even something like this, which, you know, you might look at it and at first think, God, how am I going to make that? But if we just break it down by making like a box, you know, it's the same construction that we do for everything. Oh, that's not a great box. Hold on. You know, we just come in here, we'll make this, we'll take this with our cut tool, bring it up, maybe not to this height. Then we'll cut in like this, cut in like this, and then we'll make a mask, and then we'll cut it down. Same thing with the bolt, it's just a mask. We bring it in. And so I think that now, just looking at the radio, it should be a lot easier to tell how I made these things, and I don't need to go through every little detail. It should just become evident to you. So I think the next place that we're going to stop is just right over here, and then that should be it. Alright, so this section of the radio is really just a victory lap. I'm sure that just by looking at it, you probably already know how to make it. The tools that we're going to use, same as always, fairly simple. So let's just get it done. So I'm just going to start by making this a little bit bigger. And then here. I'm just going to cut like that. And then continue it down. That should be good. And I'm just going to do a rough outline of the whole mask. Turn that off. Now we have this, obviously polygroups, group loops. You know how it works, and we're just going to pull that down. Then I'm going to come in here, draw another hole, cut down, do the same thing. Alright, and then you remember how we got the screw. We just go into the IMM menu, get this thing, put it in here, split it up, subdivide it, increase the Dynamesh. There we go. And then just come in here and give it a smooth. I think maybe these need to come down a bit more. Since we have these as polygroups, we can just stretch them down. Fortunately, we're going to have a bit of a bad result because we Dynameshed it. Yeah. So in this situation, what I think would work is if I just did this to where it expands it. Then I can come in, just take out the top, and then I can push this down, and hopefully, yeah, that's fine. Continues. And this doesn't look quite right over here, and so I can either choose to move this or the silhouette edge. I think I'm going to opt for this one because the silhouette's looking pretty good. So I'll just put the pivot over here and scale it down. That fixes it. This edge comes all the way around. One sec, there we go. I could take that down, group loops, and cut. And it's not too deep on the reference. That should be good. So what I'm going to do is a little bit of fixing. So this is how I'd fix this is first I'm just going to bring this all up like this. There we go. Bring it down. And then cut like this. Yeah, this needs to come way down actually. Alright. Now I want to match these radiuses on each side. So looks like I can pull this out a little bit more. Pull this down. Do a cut. I'll do a circle. And then I'll just take it off the top and the bottom. Alright, new polygroups. Bring it up. There we go. Come in. Sync it back in. So now we have a little edge to it. These are always tricky because you got to get the right pull on them. Obviously this isn't perfect, but again we can just come in and edit it with like the move tool. It looks like some of these edges are not as, they're a little bit gooey from the group loops, so we should have probably turned down the polish. But you get the idea. We can come in and fix them like this. Alright, that's alright. And then we have a little cut here. And I don't think we have to group loop it. Looks like it comes down a bit more. Just a touch. But that's about right. And then obviously we have this section where it echoes that. But I think it's fine. Just come in, do this. Then I think how we're going to do this is make a new polygroup, group loop, bring it down. Oops. Always isolate whenever you do group loops. And then it's just a matter of getting the right thickness. So it's like that. Come in, do one of these. Looks good. Same thing on the other side. Like that. If it's not good, you can just come in, mask it, put your gizmo here, push it out a little bit more. That looks fine. And then we've got this rough little bit here. I'm just going to mask that, fill it up. Just need to extend this up. And finally, I'll just polish all of this with a smooth. Looks pretty good right here. Cut them and then fill them up with your planer. Same kind of thing that we've been doing. And that's looking better. Come in, and you can just draw one of these in. And I can come in and just fix this a little bit. Obviously not perfect, we could spend more time on it, but probably as good as we're going to get it in this time period. So that is more or less what the part looks like. And I think that will probably wrap it up. Alright, this concludes all the sections we are going to be covering on the radio. Hopefully this section of the tutorial gave you some better context of the tools you learned in part 1 and showed you just how simple it is to use Dynamesh for making complex models like this. I encourage you guys to do breakdowns of images, things that you want to make inside of Photoshop or just by looking at it and trying to figure out how you would model it with the tool set that you now know inside of Zbrush. And I think that's going to wrap it up for part 2. So on to part 3.